statements about sex, and they're not even sexual yet, that should be considered a criminal offense as far as I'm concerned. It's in our criminal code. If you actually search out our criminal code and you read it, like if you are sexual in the presence of a minor, that is a crime here in British Columbia.
Sections 171.1 of the criminal code.
And this is the point. You know, we have to make it very clear to you know, these libraries and different places that are hosting these what do you call them, the drag queen shows, that is a sexual behavior. So if you're going to behave in a sexual manner, you should have to pay the ultimate price and be charged criminally for you know, just breaking the law.
Hi folks, you know, maybe one day it won't rain on me when I go out to try and shoot something, but I'm out in Abbotsford here. There is a small crowd gathered. They're here to talk about, well, they'd actually like to talk to the Abbotsford School District, but they didn't show up. They're doing their meeting on Zoom. But there's a crowd gathered here to protest the kind of anti-SOGI doctrine, or the SOGI doctrine they have going on. I also ran into Dallas Brodie and Jim McMurtry, yeah. The ride or die people, they always come out no matter what the weather.
I won't go on too long because I know probably everybody's cold, but I want to thank James for organizing this. I mean, this is so amazing, and this is exactly what needs to happen. And while I was listening to the speakers tonight, I realized that these school board meetings, what you're receiving at the school board meetings is what Tara Armstrong and I are receiving in the legislature whenever we bring up these issues. We are treated like the treatment we get, the abuse, the bullying that comes from the Premier and the Attorney General and the Education Minister, they treat us like we don't even have a right to exist. They actually say, who let these people into this building? They shouldn't have been brought here.
We did!
We blame you, John Rustad, for bringing these people into this building. And they point us out and they say that it's not even worthy to respond to their questions. It's incredible. So you think you're getting shut out here, and we're raising legitimate questions about the gender alteration of children who are little kids. There are, Billboard Chris has come to the legislature and he's explained that there's a private clinic in Vancouver that's removing the breasts of 14-year-old girls, okay? 14. Now, I didn't even know I wanted kids until I was in my late 30s, and I was convinced I didn't want children until that point. These kids don't know what they want at this age. They really, really don't, and we all know that because we're the grown-ups.
While the board claims that parents were misinformed and even called the concern inflammatory, transphobic, and hateful, you guys still remove the books that we were talking about. So,
Mr. Barnes, it has to be related to the business of the agenda.
The SOGI, the inappropriate books, and the fact that he said that he wants the parents to be more involved. But every time
Mr.
we are
Barnes,
involved...
Mr. Barnes, please, just a question regarding the business of the agenda. I know you're asking about SOGI, but not books, because books is not the actual topic. It was...
Books are learning resource. So they are...
And
SOGI, the first point on SOGI 1, 2, 3 is learning resource.
That question I cannot pass on to staff because it's not specifically related to the delivery of SOGI in the classroom.
It is.
My motion did include SOGI resources, which is books.
SOGI 1, 2, 3 includes SOGI resources.
That's what I meant when I said SOGI resources is books and any papers. So.
School board, I believe, I talked one time. Since then, there is no public school board meeting. There is not. They can't sell it because they consider us, parents, as a threat. But that's already that's actually a good thing because now we're exposing the school board. We're exposing who they really are. They said they want to work with parents, and that, like I said to them before, it's a lie. The Abbotsford School District doesn't want to work with parents. They only want to hear what feed the ideology.
Okay, so joining me now is Jim McMurtry. Jim, can you introduce yourself?
I'm well known as a fired teacher, sadly. Right. I was faced with a situation in which the whole school system right across Canada was telling kids about all these murders in residential schools, starting with 215 child remains found in a mass grave Kamloops, and that was May 2021. I told kids the truth. It's something I have expertise in. During grad school, I worked under Mark Carney. His father, Robert Carney, was leading expert on residential schools.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't say anything that was historically inaccurate, and yet it was enough to have me canceled forever as a teacher.
I've just recently learned about Mark Carney's father. He was like a teacher in a day school, and you know him?
He was a wonderful man, wonderful to me, and his son said, I love my father, but I don't agree with those views. And yet he was the leading expert on what we used to call Indian education policy. So he was responsible in the Northwest Territories of not just an Indigenous day school, but the whole system at one point. And so he was never somebody who had negative things to say about residential schools. It's quite the opposite. Can we make them better?
Yes, I'm going to talk to you about that, but first I'm going to we're standing here today because we're here for a SOGI protest. But one thing I also wanted to say, I have seen you get roughed up lately at UVic with Francis Widowson. It's just been appalling, the behavior towards the residential schools. The psychosis is deep, isn't it?
It is psychosis. The university students are completely unprepared to entertain a different view. And the thing that's the most absurd about this, of course, is that, they attack people like me and Francis, and yet we're both people who have doctorates, who have publications. We're both in the recent book that came out on residential schools called Dead Wrong, which is currently a bestseller. Mm-hmm. And so you think that we'd have something to offer.
They don't want to listen.
No. In fact, physically attacked.
You were physically attacked. We could do a huge, deep interview about residential schools, but we probably not the time and place. But a lot of people think. You would agree that bad things did happen in residential schools. It wasn't all a walk in the park, but it wasn't all
bad.
But
there's no school it's all a walk in the park.
My mom was strapped in school.
That's right, but I've had 10 students die as a public school teacher.
How?
I had 2 with muscular dystrophy.
Right.
I had a boy die during a basketball game.
Oh.
Kids dying of leukemia, which used to be more common. Kids die, and there are cases of abuse in schools, particularly, when you talk about kids living away in a boarding school or going away to university. So I don't ever enter into discussion with residentials and talking about the bad, because overwhelmingly, they were good, and even in the Truth and Reconciliation report, it said these schools had good intentions and good accomplishments.
Yeah. What brings you out here today?
Well, as a public school teacher, it's hard to be, I'm concerned about, again, how they're misrepresenting the past. But they're so obsessed with race and sexuality and trans and just sort of getting into the sort of very personal exploitation of kids. And so I dealt with it at this Abbotsford School District. I had kids that were being forced to transition. So good on them. SOGI, particularly for young kids, it's a really alien thing. It's invasive of children's normal growing up period. Yeah. Leave sex out of the lives of a 6 or a 10-year-old.
One thing that really surprised me was our Scholastic Book Fair this year actually had a table for diversity. And I was able to purchase some books on new immigrants, refugees, as well as the book Red, which is one of my favorite books. Michael Hall has written a kid's picture book about a crayon who comes dressed in a label, which is red, but he's really blue. When I read it to a group of grade 2-3s, one of the kids at the end put up his hand and said, I think this book is about transgender. I think that crayon's a transgender character. And then another kid says, maybe the author's transgender. I'm like, maybe. It was just a neat conversation that I wouldn't have had 5 years ago.
The revised BC curriculum has left a lot of scope for teachers to really personalize for their students and personalize for themselves what it is they're going to teach. There's scope for embracing diversity. There's certainly scope for creating safer classrooms. All of that can be found in the curriculum.
Miss Dallas Brodie, It's great to catch up with you.
Thank you, Anita. It's lovely to be interviewed by you, and thank you.
You're getting very popular. A lot of people are watching your film. What is it called again?
It's called Making a Killing, Reconciliation, Genocide, and the Plunder of Canada.
But making something like that has not been an easy endeavor, has it? I mean, there's a lot of, well, financially it's hard, but there's a lot of emotional pushback, is there not?
It was time consuming, it was difficult. Most of it was shot during the first 2 weeks of July, and it was a real trip. We had to drive around the province in a van, and there were 5 of us, and we had a good time, but it was setting up all the interviews, which you know as an interviewer. This takes time and detail. Where are we going to meet? Where are we going to shoot it? What are we going to talk about? And as we went through, it was more, we had very willing people who wanted to speak to us. Some of the interviews we tried to get, they refused, like the chief of the Kamloops band wouldn't speak to us, and other politicians who were against me on opposite sides of this issue wouldn't speak to us, but that was to be expected.
Because it's very emotional. People are very emotional about this topic if you say anything about First Nations.
I know, it is an emotional topic, and I think it's because it's become so loaded. It shouldn't be this loaded. And my whole life I've watched this developing, and I think what's happened is people are now saying, gee, we've now spent billions and billions of dollars, and actually things are not going well for the average Native person, and so what's going on here? And when I got expelled from the Conservative Party over my comments about there having been no bodies actually found at the Kamloops Indian Residential School, that's where my journey started. And the idea of this documentary is to say, okay, I posted this, but I didn't actually realize at the time the hornet's nest that I was kicking.
You know, in the beginning, I was a fan of John Rustad. I liked him. You know, what do you think went wrong there, and what led him to stepping down?
Well, you mean his most recent stepping down and the whole thing? I have to say, like, I actually really liked John too, and I believed in him, and I campaigned hard for him, and I believed he was going to bring real change. But one of the problems they had when they created that party is, well, it really was started on the backs of Conservatives, and I was one of the early founding people in that party. I was their first candidate they ever ran in like 57 years in my riding, and it was in the first by-election. And of course I didn't win that one, but it was really to say, we're here, we're going to start. And more Conservatives came out, and it was very exciting. A lot of people from the freedom movement who had seen the problems with mandates and the government overreach. And then as we were all getting involved in our campaigns, when they started making deals with the BC Liberals, because Kevin Falcon, I guess, decided they were going to fold in, it really became, like, we didn't realize they were sort of backloading the party with a lot of people who weren't the Conservatives that we were, okay?
Right.
They might say that they were Conservatives, but they weren't of the same breed at all. And we were people who were really pushing for a significant change in political choices in BC, because we really felt we hadn't been served well by the former BC Liberal, then BC United Party, and the NDP. So this was supposed to be striking out on a new course. And then once the party all got together, we found out, this is crazy, because a lot of us have fundamental disagreements on key issues that a lot of us Conservatives never anticipated seeing.
It's hard in politics, though. You get in there and then you have to appease everybody.
Yes.
And then you can almost self-implode, which is what Rustad did.
Yes, and it started to implode because the factions within that party became very obvious. And it was unpleasant. The meetings were unpleasant. There was hostility, and people were angry. And you know, even when I spoke to Eleanor Sturko after she was recently expelled from the party, she said, you know, Dallas, I had to say that you got lied to, and I got lied to. And I don't like what happened here. I was told the party was going to be this. You were told the party was going to be that. I can see why you were completely frustrated now.
Schools, because it was something the teacher wasn't going to win in doing unless you just made them out to be killing fields. What really actually got me going more than anything else was all the literature that they were removing. They were taking out all the books that kids really liked, all the focus on race, and that kids had to see themselves as being trapped in their own skin and other birth characteristics for life. The gender stuff, oh my gosh, the trans stuff. I had one parent say to me, Oh, thank you very much, Mr. McMurtry, for you're the only teacher that's talking about this. My daughter has 4 of her friends in her own little play group, 4 of them transitioning. And so this is a serious problem. There's also, they're moving away from academic standards. They're moving away from essays and exams and anything that creates accountability. At this district, they had kids wearing equity backpacks to and from school in some schools. They had equity marking. My own principal used to take teachers aside if the marks weren't high enough for particularly the Black and Indigenous kids. The defamation of the dead, the complete deformation and smearing of Canadian history. I could go on a long time. So again, I made some notoriety by saying that there were no children found at the Kamloops Indian Residential School. There were no children found at any residential school. There are no murdered or missing children, no disappeared children. But again, I think it's much. My concern as the teacher, it extends far beyond that.